Should we talk about fasting?
I can't rave enough about fasting. It's a life changer.
Yeah,
It's a
it is.
game changer. It's a life changer. It is literally being your own doctor,
Yeah.
as in, all the ailments like I have had has been definitely helped by
Hmm.
fasting. Um, I feel like I know I have a tooth abscess
Hmm.
because I have a bloody root canal and this is before I knew about the teeth
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
And I am going to get rid of it and all of this. And but fasting has reduced
Oh, yeah.
the
Yeah.
pain and the discomfort I'm
Yeah.
feeling. And um, can I speak about my fasting journey?
Please.
And so I again when I was healthy, I was eating breakfast, all of this nonsense. That's another programming that
Well,
they've
it's a good
given
marketing
us.
exercise that it's the most important meal of the day because it gets you buying more
Yeah,
food.
yeah, exactly. And you're breaking your fast.
Yeah.
Well, you shouldn't really break your fast because fasting is the best thing for you.
Yeah.
So, and then what are you breaking your fast with? Cereal, like
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
madness, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
So we have been programmed, the 5 a day, all of that nonsense, as in not the fruits, but eating 5 meals a day. So,
Hmm.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner and two snacks. It's
Hmm.
craziness. And what it does to your system, all of the acids forming in your mouth when you're chewing,
Hmm.
all of the, it's just so much. It just destroys you
Yeah.
eating that often, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, and so I started off, and it was horrible. It was like, what the hell? So I started 12
Yeah.
hours and then moving it. 16 hours was so
Hmm.
difficult. And I was hungry. I was ready to kill people. I was like, don't talk to me. Um, but when it was almost like it was a wall that you had to
Yeah.
penetrate to get through. So
Yeah.
it's I want to say it's not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, it is quite difficult,
Hmm.
and you have to be committed to change.
Yeah.
It's a change of lifestyle,
Yeah. Hmm.
and but the benefits once you come through it are just so amazing.
Hmm.
And then you start looking at, again, we talked about earlier, holistic. You start looking at, like, what am I consuming
Hmm.
that can prolong my fast?
Hmm.
What am I consuming that will actually break the fast
Hmm.
and ruin it?
Hmm.
And so you start looking at the sugars, and you start looking at the fats, and
Hmm.
you start looking at, oh, fats are really good for you. They're really good for the brain. Low fat food is the enemy,
Hmm.
because it's just sugar,
Yeah.
and and but I think that when you want to start a fast, I think you need to research it,
Hmm.
because I did. And you need to start. I would recommend people kind of taking maybe a week out of work
Hmm.
and research it and look at what actually can happen to your body, because you can get the constipations, which are quite uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And you're obviously going to start to detox, because you're losing all the
Hmm.
water, and you're losing all the toxins. So yeah, I think that going, just again, I keep saying the word mindful,
Hmm.
but just be aware of that it's going to impact initially. I thought I was healthy, like I said. I had the worst
Yeah.
fasting. I think they call it fasting fever or
Hmm.
fasting flu,
Hmm.
where you actually have flutes. I was knocked
Yeah.
for about a week
It's
with,
your body says, right, now I can detox.
yes.
Because that's all the flu is.
And
It's an emergency detoxification because your level of toxicity has gone too high.
yeah, but I don't think you're aware of it once you start these sorts of therapies, you're
Yeah.
not aware of how toxic your body really is.
Oh, I know. Yeah. And it can take years too. I started fasting probably 2 years ago and I just did intermittent fasting. I have the odd time where I might do a couple of days. But that worked really well. And then I decided to go to one meal a day, which I found works really well for me, but not so well in the winter. Because I notice my body temperature starts to drop. If I eat normally around sort of 6, 7 in the evening,
Mm,
from about 3 o'clock onwards, I start to feel really cold. in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So what I tend to do is I'll like today I had some eggs at probably 3 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So I've still been about 19 odd hours, and it feels strange to eat at that
Mm-hmm.
time. But I know if I don't do it, I'll feel cold when I'm working outside later on. So I'd rather have that lack of discomfort. But tomorrow I'm not working out in the afternoon, so I'll simply wait until the evening.
Mm.
And it
What time do you? Sorry to cut you. What time do you normally eat then? What time
sort
is
of
your?
sort of 6ish, 7ish, something like that.
Oh, okay. So you're
Yeah.
you're a dinner
Yes.
person
Yeah.
in your one meal a day.
Yeah. I've done
You
it that
take
way
it as dinner.
because otherwise my partner doesn't have breakfast, and when she comes
Mm.
home from work, we like to chat and we have food together. If I was breaking it, say in the morning or at lunchtime, we'd actually never sit down and eat together anymore. So,
Yeah, yeah, true, true,
so it's
true.
for me, it's not maybe the perfect way of doing it, but it's the best way to fit in with the lifestyle that I'm choosing.
And it's the same for me. I
Mm,
eat in the
mm,
evening because I like sleeping in the morning.
mm.
So that's so
Yeah,
I don't want to rush anything and I take my time in the morning.
yeah,
And so when I come home from work, that's when I eat.
yeah.
And I can't speak on this because I'm not an expert. People say you shouldn't eat because I eat a heavy meal, like
I do.
it's all of my calories within
Yeah,
one meal,
yes,
right?
yeah.
And people say you shouldn't really because you're not going to sleep properly. And
Sleep fine.
but I think the body
Of
adapts.
course it does.
Like
Yeah.
I don't have any problems around sleep or digestion, and I don't have. And you know what's amazing, Adrian? It's like I wake up and I'm not hungry.
No.
I'm not angry and I'm not hungry. And
If
go
I've not
on, you're
been
going to
able to
say
get access
something.
to good food in the evening, let's say
Yes.
the other night we got completely stuck time wise. We'd been to a funeral and everything had just gone wrong. And I said, look, I'll just go get some sourdough pizza. It's not ideal. We'll throw some salad with it. I was hungry the next morning because it was way
Mm,
too many carbs and I shouldn't have done it. But it was like, I'm going to eat something. I have to because I've got like a 3 hour drive home.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but the rest of the time, if you do it right, you're eating a lot of fats and some protein and very little
Yes.
carbs, you
Yeah.
aren't hungry. You don't need
Yeah.
to get up. And there's a difference as well. I think you get used to the idea of the differentiation between feeling hungry and feeling empty because they are different.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think as a woman, as a woman, obviously, but the cycles as well.
Yeah.
Like I feel my mood is more even,
Hmm.
whereby before I could again become quite labile. I was very labile in mood.
Hmm.
Sometimes very sad,
Hmm.
sometimes very, angry.
Hmm.
And I feel with the fasting,
Yeah.
it's keeping me leveled.
Yeah. You'll find your energy
Um,
levels are level as well. Mine are. They're very constant during the day. There's none of these kind of peaks and troughs I used to get. All that's gone. I just have a good level of energy constantly.
Absolutely. And you look at when I'm working, I look at, so I do for kind of alertness and energy, I do take some, I have green tea. I
Hmm.
keep, that kind of keeps me awake.
Hmm.
But I have one green tea throughout the day. Um, I'm not making any sense now. So I have some, I have, I have one cup of green tea, but I top it up, if that makes sense, with hot
Yes.
water. So I don't have the tea bags. I have
I'm
the
glad you
leaves.
clarified that because I'm thinking that's going to be a really slow drink.
Yeah. And quite disgusting towards the end.
Yes.
But no, so I top up the
Yeah.
leaves kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I drink that. And where am I going with this? Yes. So what were we talking about? Sorry, I've lost myself
Well,
now.
I think it's quite
Oh
funny
yeah,
because
the energy, the
yes.
energy. So I'm like, I see my colleagues and they're like, I have, come 11:30, 12 o'clock. I'm like, we need to do this. And they're like, no, no, it's lunch. I'm like, well, so what? No, no, I need to have lunch. It's lunch. And you can really see how desperate they become and
Yeah.
completely shut off.
Yeah.
Whereas I can just go on and
Yeah.
I'm not hungry. I'm like still concentrating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, why I'm not, but come 7 o'clock, I start getting hungry
Yes.
because that's when my body knows I need to eat.
Yeah.
But I also want to, you were going to say something. Sorry. I
No,
don't
I was
know.
going to say it was quite funny because one of the things I'd noticed is a lot greater clarity of thought, and there was you and I trying to find the words.
Yeah. Yeah, I know
But
it's quite
normally, I've
funny.
got really good clarity
Yeah.
of thought. I've
Yeah,
noticed
yeah,
that did
yeah.
get better.
Yes. but I'm also on one meal a day. But going back to my journey and all of that, please have a look at research it. You
Yeah.
know, because it can be uncomfortable with the
Yeah.
constipation and you know the detoxification, you know the flu
Hmm.
and there is so much information out there
Mm.
around you know what happens to you when you fast. And I think don't go mad. You know, start with just pushing an hour. Start
Hmm.
you know if you have lunch at like 1, push it to 2 or skip it, you know, and start you know going from removing the hours as in you know
Yeah.
what's the word I'm looking for now my concentration
Well,
I'm
no,
not
you
I'm just
I know what you're saying because for
yeah.
me, my fast learning journey started out. I noticed on a Saturdays because I was busy in the morning doing stuff around the house and going out and organizing stuff that sometimes I wouldn't sit down to have breakfast till like 2 in the afternoon.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
thought I wasn't missing it. I was just busy doing stuff.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
thought, well, I could probably do that every day. So then I started
Yes.
to do that every day. And then I
And you start
thought,
combining lunch and breakfast.
yeah, yeah,
That's one meal. Yeah.
that's right. And then
Yeah.
started to push it. And I found, for me, it was a bit difficult. I kept thinking, all right, I can get till 4 o'clock, not a problem. But then I find I'd have lunch at 4. But when it would come time to like eat at 7, I wasn't hungry again. I thought, that's not working. So if I can just close that gap down, and that's what I did over the period of a week, and it was fine. But as I said, the winter thing, I found and with my eye, I found that it was very useful to eat a lot of eggs during the day.
Hmm.
But I think come spring and stuff, in fact, not even spring, because I did 3 days of one meal a day this week. So, you know. But that's the other thing is that you see what suits. If I really think I need something for later on, I'll just have something. I've got
Yes.
more relaxed
Yes.
about that, but I'm very aware that and there are some days, you know, where I might not sit down to eat till like 8 o'clock and I've had at 6 the night before. So it's been 26 hours and I'm not hungry and I haven't got shaky hands and I've not got a terrible headache. I had those to start with,
Yes.
but that's all the junk coming out of your system.
Yeah. I feel when I'm doing a prolonged fast, and by that I mean like 42 hours, I do
Hmm.
that sometimes.
Hmm.
The first day can be a bit of a struggle in
Hmm.
terms of energy. And you know, when I do the one meal a day and I skip that meal and
Hmm.
I go to bed, you know, I'm a bit like, okay. But once I wake up in the morning, I feel on top of the world.
Oh yeah.
You know, I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, this is
Hmm.
just such an energy
Hmm.
boost,
Well, it's like a
which
drug.
is
It's weird.
it is. And I do want to speak on the benefits of fasting. I mean, I'm sure people know, but they might not. And you know, it's that, and that's how it's so therapeutic because it creates this thing called autophagy,
Yep.
and it's basically this kind of self-eating
Yeah.
mechanism where the body or this, correct me if I'm wrong, the cells are scavenging
Yeah.
for, you know, cells that are malformed or you know kind of dying or
Yeah.
you know debris, and
Yeah.
that's what they consume
Yeah.
because you know you're not giving them sort of any
Yeah.
you know sustenance.
Yeah.
And then the longer your fast goes, this is what I've been taught, you know, your body starts creating stem cells and
Yep.
human growth hormone.
Yeah.
So if you can do longer fasts, I mean, you know, you are essentially healing yourself,
Well,
you
you know what
know.
I've thought for a long time, which I've spoken to some people, and some people are like, yeah, that makes sense, and other people are like, you've lost your mind, which I get used to,
Mm,
is that I do wonder whether food is actually some kind of toxin and we don't really need food and that we're primarily breatharian in nature. But if you tried to, much like if you were addicted to opium and you suddenly went cold turkey, you'd probably die from withdrawal. And it's possibly the way we'd go with food too. But if I feel this much better eating just once a day, mainly,
mm, mm,
what would I feel like if I only ate every 2 days or
mm,
every 3 days? What would that be
mm,
like? And it's something I want to explore this coming year is to start pushing it out just to see, do I feel better? Do I feel worse?
mm. I mean, I haven't looked into breatharian, and I mean, it kind of, I'm not sure if it makes any sense.
Well, for
Like,
me, it's the one, and without following down that rabbit hole, you can't go for more than 3 minutes or so without breath, and you're going to start to get problems. But you can go for months without food, and you can go for days, possibly a week without water. But the breath's the
yeah.
critical one. But it does make me wonder. But that was an aside anyway. It was more
No,
about
but it's
yeah,
interesting. It's an
yeah,
interesting, and I think that, like, you know, please, if you do try it, let me know how it goes.
yeah, yeah, Yeah.
because but I also think that food, we're talking about the society we live in.
Yes.
They're using it to kill us,
Yes.
and so um I don't have sugar cravings.
Nope.
I can taste the sweetness in almonds,
Mhm.
whereas before, when I was eating low fat, this, that, and the other, I mean, my taste buds were rubbish.
Yeah.
I can taste the sweetness in carrots, and it's amazing.
Yes.
Whereas before I didn't. So,
Yeah.
and you look at the powers that be, all of what they, you know food is one of the most toxic things. So
Mhm.
being in control of your attachment to food and your need to eat,
Mhm.
and I'm not promoting any sort of disordered eating,
Mhm.
because when I eat a lot, and I
Mhm.
eat a lot of fats.
Mhm.
And I think that's extremely important to be aware of. You're not abstaining for food completely. You're just
No.
managing when you're eating,
Yeah.
and you're eating healthy. And so leading back to this I can't say that word,
Breatharian.
breatharian,
Breatharian. Yeah.
breatharian.
Yeah.
How does that work for your brain if you don't have any fats to do you understand, where does the energy come from?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because that kind of leads down the road. Then, all right, where does it come from? Is there stuff in the ether? And then you also look at the ones that do solar gazing and seem to
Mm-hmm.
get their sustenance from the sun, much like the plants do.
Mm.
So it's an area I'd like to explore more over time. It's not really relevant to our discussion on fasting per se, but it's an interesting.
Yes, yeah, sorry.
But no, it's not, because I started it. It's an interesting pathway that I can see for me to explore. But certainly
Yes,
in terms of the fasting, you don't have to do any of that. But if you can go a little longer, and you may decide that 16 hours a day is a comfortable one for you for a while, or for a good while of fasting.
yes, yes,
I think the more compressed time you can get with your food, the better it is. And
yes,
like
I
you,
agree.
if I only do one meal a day, one of the things I've noticed is really interesting is, instead of just grabbing food because I'm hungry, I spend several hours during the day kind of daydreaming and being mindful about what would be the most nutritious thing that I can
Yes,
do in this limited time I've got to get some really good stuff in. And invariably, I
absolutely.
find that I eat better
Yeah.
because I've had, most of the day to think about it. And there's other benefits too, like there's no washing up in the morning, there's no washing up
Yes.
at
Yeah, yeah,
lunchtime.
yeah.
You
And
know,
and you're saving a lot of money,
yes.
and you're saving a lot of time.
Yeah, and I found that I ended up eating probably 60% of what I used to eat,
Mm,
and I lost some weight, but then I stopped losing weight and I stayed the same. So,
mm.
you're not going to waste away.
No, you're not. And I mean, but it's also good for someone who wants to lose weight.
Oh, yeah.
So it's you have your Weight Watchers, and you have all this nonsense like
Hmm.
Slim Fast or whatever. I
Hmm.
mean, goodness,
Yeah.
just start fasting. But I have spoken to people, like my longest was 4 days,
Hmm.
and I was going a bit loopy then.
Hmm. Well, I spoke to someone in the summer when I did that Pelagian retreat, and she'd done a dry fast for 8 days, which is no food and no water.
My God, no, I wouldn't be able
And
to
that was
do.
a very, as she defined it, a very spiritual experience. But she used it to
Okay.
cure a particular health malady she'd had for a long time, and it sorted it.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Wow.
I believe it would do. When I was having trouble with my eye,
Yeah.
I kept thinking, right, if this doesn't get any better, I will just stop eating for a week or a month if I have to, and that will
Yes.
kickstart everything.
Yeah. But I think also you need to kind of I'm sure she must have been building up to being able to do that, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think she had to work into it. Yeah, it's not something you could suddenly decide to do, because you're getting into a pretty critical danger point, I think, if you're
Yeah.
doing anything that extreme. And that's not the purpose of
Yeah.
this discussion. It's just to say that I think if the very first thing I would do, if I got something really serious, one
Mm,
of my first points of call would always be to cut right back on the food, to let my body sort itself out, so that the
yeah.
energy was being used on the issue
Yeah.
rather than the pleasure of eating, which it still is for me. I do love food.
Yes, same. And
Yeah.
and I agree with you. I think that definitely the best way of managing is to cut down on your food, and is
Yeah.
but I also, sorry, speaking of food, my stomach is going. I haven't haven't had my meal yet, so that's probably why. But anyways,
Well, we can draw
I
this one to a close in a few minutes. That's fine.
okay. No. I just super enjoy
Yeah.
talking to you.
Well,
But yes,
this won't be our last conversation. Don't worry about that.
oh, okay. I do want to say as well. It's the food. Going back to the society. How we are programmed,
Yeah.
and it's another hold they have over us.
Yeah.
It's another thing that we become reliant upon. The fasting lifestyle again takes you away from tapping into the medical system,
Yes.
because your body is healing yourself. And I don't know if I did mention, but when I was doing the fermenting and when I was learning about fasting, this one guy I was looking at said that you have your stomach, intestines, and the gut walls and all of that. And so if you imagine yourself as a gardener, so your gut would be the soil, and your probiotics and the bacteria would be your seeds.
Mm-hmm.
If you're eating these things if you're trying to plant something on a soil that's not fertile,
Mm-hmm.
it has no effect. So that's why they sort of work together, whereby your fasting is helping to heal your intestines
Mm-hmm.
and the gut, and then you're adding the probiotics and the fermented foods
Mm-hmm.
to support the flora.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really nice when he explained it in a way that you can't really sow anything on cement, and
Not effectively, no.
no. And a lot of people's stomachs are currently
Yeah.
cement
Yeah.
because of the unhealthy eatings.
Yeah.
So what was the other thing? Yeah. And then having this sort of moving away from the medical system. I keep saying that.
Mm-hmm.
But it just is it's another tool for you, I feel, to disconnect from the powers that be. You do
Yeah.
so much else around that.
Yeah.
And I think that in combination with healthy eating, nutrition, fasting, again, I don't take over-the-counter medication. I haven't done for years. I would never dream of doing it now. No antibiotics,
No.
no vaccines, no nothing. And I feel perfectly great.
Yeah.
I'm speaking to my colleagues, and they have ongoing colds and flus and everlasting, and I'm like, okay, I'm sure you why this is, but
And I agree with you. I haven't seen a doctor in 33, 34 years. Haven't taken a pill in as long.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, well, I did, and I've had some problems, but I
Yes.
also realized that my body's capable of fixing anything, so I'm just going to go with it and let it do it, and do
Yes.
what I have to do to get through it.
But is it also when I had that eye thing, I was like, oh my God, like the fear kicked in. I'm gonna go blind.
Yeah.
And then I said, no, Linda, you're not. Your body is gonna, have faith in healing, and don't be fearful. Would you say that sort of?
Yeah, I'm going to do a video about it. I'm planning it out now.
Oh, good.
As a kind of a mini documentary called My Left Eye.
Yes.
And it's about what went on in that. But yeah, there was several things I did. There was I was mindful of the nutrition. And for some reason, for me, I felt like I was short on eggs. When I asked myself, what do you need to help the pain? And eggs. So I started having like 4 and 5 eggs a day. And immediately the pain subsided a lot. So I thought I must have been sort of something in the eggs that was missing in my diet. But I was also, as you said, I wrote down these lists of not really affirmations, but like, it'll always be all right in the end. Everything's working out for me. It always does. And I would not just read them in my planner, in my journal. I would say them as I was reading them. So I was verbalizing them, reading them, and listening to them at the same time. And I still do that every day. There's like 5 pages of them. So it's all the time, over and over again. Add to them, because that, for me, it was to keep the negative mind chatter at bay. And also to be all right with the idea that, you know what, I am pretty much blind at this point. If I put my hand there, I couldn't have seen my fingers or the shape of my hand or anything unless it was against a very bright background. So, and so I was like, I'm all right with the fact that this may be permanent, but I don't think it is permanent, because nothing's permanent. So I'd be having these ongoing conversations, and without, going too far into the story, the other thing I did was I managed the relationships I had with third parties that were so frightened about how they would approach it that they thought I was being irresponsible by not going immediately to see a doctor or an optician. So I said, you know what, if that's where you're at, I respect that. But out of respect for myself, I'm going to keep the fuck away from you until this thing's resolved, because that's not helping me.
Yes.
And that's what I did.
Yes.
And here we are
yes.
now, I've got about 85% of my vision back now. It's still a bit cloudy, but it's so much better than it was.
Amazing.
So
Amazing.
that just goes to show what you can do. But that will be some content I make. And I may even cut this little bit of our chat out because I don't want to share that until I've got the whole
No,
content
that's
ready.
okay. Absolutely. But I think that you should share it, because I think that that's, it just goes to show that what we keep talking about, like what the body can actually do for you.
It can do anything. It grew from nothing.
Yeah.
It grew from a thought maybe that your parents had at some level that it'd be nice to create a little one. Whether they had that thought or not, that's what happened. And, and it's constantly renewing itself. And even the fact that we abuse it intentionally or otherwise for 70 or 80 years, and it still manages to keep going with throwing tons and tons of toxins in. So what could we do if we simply start to tidy things up? We use the fermented foods. We fast, just 16, 18, 20, 24 hours a day, whatever you can get into. Every little bit, I think, will add time to life. But it's not just, I spent a lot of time around a nursing home recently with my mother-in-law who passed. And I said to my partner, thank you, that I've got no interest in ending up like this. This is not life.
No.
And yet I know other people that do ferment food, that do fast, that do drink distilled water, that do get time in nature. They breathe carefully. They're mindful about what they do. And they're like 90, 95 years old. And they're running around like a 50-year-old. They've got all this vibrancy and energy and passion and excitement. So that is what is possible if we simply start to work within the rules of the game, I think, because there are certain rules to follow. If you do follow them, all of a sudden life becomes much more fun. Rant over.
No, I absolutely agree. And I think that, because we're looking at quality of life.
Yes.
What is your quality of life when you're dying in a hospice,
It's horrible.
I'd rather die, slipping on a banana peel in my garden or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, yeah.
Compos mentis. Now I've got a screen coming up in my... Anyways, and so I lost what I was going to say.
Quality of life.
Quality of life and prolonging life. This is a reality. The world we live in is so kind of geared towards suffering, I feel.
Yeah.
And I think that just this is what I was going to say. People spend time doing MOTs, like they spend so much time looking after their car and, this and, but they are the most unhealthiest, unhappiest. And I'm thinking to myself, why don't you do the same to yourself? You have such, love for your car. Why don't you want to do exactly the same to the vessel that's going to carry you in this reality?
Yeah.
And it's a funny one. But it's nice to hear that there are, it's good to hear that there are ways around and improving yourself. I mean, that's what we're sharing right now, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. And, if it works for us, it works for loads of other people. It's probably going to work for you listening to this as well. That, if you're having a go, that's all I did. I had to go and see what happened. I was like, that's pretty good, that. And you stick with it.
Yes, I quite enjoy that.
Yeah, it's not like, life can be really convenient if you can pop a pill and feel better because you think you've handled it, and you haven't. You've actually prolonged the problem and made it worse. But you can do things that become lifestyle choices, and those lifestyle choices really start to serve you. And I think the other thing is that when you do, something happens and you do have some kind of poisoning event or toxicity event in your life, you're much better positioned to deal with it very quickly because you go, you know what, right, I understand the games, I understand the rule of engagement. Let's do this, this, and this and see what happens, then do this, this, and this. And all of a sudden, you're not fearful. You're not like, oh, my God, what am I going to do? It's just stuff being sorted out. I'm going to crack on with it.
and I identify the root cause
Yes, and
instead of
deal with that,
this,
and then the symptoms go away because the symptoms are
yeah,
the effects.
exactly,
It's all cause and effect.
exactly. Yes, exactly. And I don't know. I mean, again, we are programmed to just
Yeah,
look at the symptoms and not the root cause. And
absolutely.
I do want to talk. That you mentioned the just lastly, I guess,
Mhm.
because I'm getting hungry now.
It's all this
um,
talk of food.
yes.